is good, everybody? My Paper Moon fam. It's your boy, PaperSin, back with another reaction video. This one is called A Case Against Simping. And it's by the YouTube channel, Glitch Poachers. So I'm curious about it. What's up? What's up? What's good? What's good? Let's check it out.
The word simpleton refers to a foolish or gullible person. It's an English term from the 17th century derived from the word simple. The word simp, shortened from simpleton, started to see use in the early 1900s. The meaning is basically the same, referring to a silly or foolish person. However, the modern usage of the word simp originates from the 80s and 90s.
I actually want to read it for myself, see what it says. Origin.
From the word simple. The word simp, short.
So okay, so it does,
simpleton,
yeah.
Started to see use in the early 1900s. The meaning is basically the same, referring to a silly or foolish person. However, the modern usage of the word simp originates from the 80s and 90s rap scene, now referring to men who are overly sympathetic, particularly to women. With the rise of things like e-girls and the manosphere, the term simp has become very popular and is often overused or misused. Some people think that simping is merely respecting women.
Bro, real quick, what the fuck is this?
Women is one thing. Prostrating yourself to try to force a romantic connection is a completely different thing. If you're being so kind that it's coming off as pushy or creepy, that's not respect. That's just desperation disguised as generosity. So what's the line between simping and respect? I think you start crossing over the line of simping. So what's the line between simping and respect? I think you start crossing over the line of simping when you start to compromise your own values and interests for the sake of somebody else, especially somebody else you barely know. Also, the term simping kind of implies that there's not much reciprocation going on, if at all. Simps will often do favors, run errands, and buy things in hopes of receiving some form of affection in return. Online, this takes the form of donations and subscriptions with a parasocial intention. Parasocial meaning the often obsessive relationship a viewer may have with a celebrity they watch. So what are some examples of a simp? In fiction, you have characters like Morty from Rick and Morty and Brock from Pokemon.
Excuse me, could you tell us where the Pokemon Center is? Pokemon Center?
Forget the Pokemon Center, I'm Brock. I'm new in town and I'm free for dinner tonight. You look hungry. Pick a place, any place at all.
I think she has reservations about dinner.
While these are good examples, they are just cartoons. As far as simping in the real world goes, there really aren't that many well-documented figures. There are lots of one-off examples of simp behavior all over the internet, but I'm looking for more of an open book example of a simp. Dallas Galley is largely known for shooting hot glue in his pants while hugging a Twitch streamer.
But I met a girl who's a streamer. I went up to her, I hugged her, and I came in my pants.
Look how happy he is about that.
I think you need to get laid a little more often.
Exactly.
At first glance, Dallas may seem like the perfect example of a simp. He truly is built different though. He comes off as completely unabashed about his behavior. Even though he says some wild things, he's still more socially comfortable than a lot of the simps who are more reclusive. He also says he doesn't watch adult content and hasn't relieved his tension in about a decade.
11 years?
Yeah, getting there.
Wait, why?
Why? I don't know, I just stopped doing it.
Sociability and self-control are not common traits of a simp. Dallas may be awkward, but he's not a hermit. What he does have in common with other simps is donating to streamers he's infatuated with.
Oh boy.
I'm in a bit of a silly, goofy mood today. Fresh off my 2-day depression. Thank you for 5 gifted, Pablo. Appreciate it. OMG, you love PokeSin. So sad. Is this a nice message? I think they wanted to.
Bro, what the fuck is that? That's annoying.
Also, I have to say, since he doesn't relieve himself, it makes a bit more sense as to why he would spill his Alfredo while hugging a streamer. When compared to others, Dallas is actually one of the more well-adjusted simps out there. An older example of documented simp behavior would be Skippy.
I just like sit there with girls sometimes on dates like, you're the cutest, you're the sweetest, you're the best. Let's cuddle. You want to cuddle? I made out with Skippy for 3 minutes. and all I got was this lousy t-shirt.
Skippy has been talked about by some big channels over the years, like H3H3 and Abba and Preach, for example. What really surprises me is he went on Fresh and
Where's
Fit
Skippy?
over a year ago.
Right now, I'm not looking to get married, only from the perspective that I finally realized that I want to, that it is a better process, and that I'm not just thinking like, oh, hey, I'll date, I'll find the right girl, and then we'll just figure it out somehow. It's like, no, I probably should be stable and have a job and not be in tons of debt. And so I'm not going on tons of dates right now, not because I don't have the internet to be able to ask girls on Tinder on dates, but because it's like, okay, crap, I need to get this stuff in line. You know?
I actually love
Good
that
shit,
because,
Skippy.
you know, I think it's good. Like, a man needs to have his shit together before he takes a girl out.
For anyone who's really struggling, putting yourself and your future first is probably the best thing you can do. Skippy also says on the podcast that he's been clean from opioids for over 4 years. Both Dallas and Skippy still have a lot of work ahead of them, but I have hope, and I'm rooting for them. Although they've both been widely mocked on the internet, the fact that they're willing to do interviews and go on podcasts already puts them in a better social position than the more reclusive simps. That is to say, this is only the tip of the iceberg. The phrase tip of the iceberg fits quite well here. Due to the often isolated nature of simps, information is scarce. What we do know is that it's not that uncommon for Twitch streamers, especially women, to have stalkers. I'll get back to that later, but it's important to note how far-gone things can get. So how does one find themselves in the position of a simp? What is the simp psychology? The studies and articles about the current state of our communication skills are largely conflicted, which makes sense because sociability isn't the easiest thing to scientifically measure. What is clear though is that children are spending more and more time on social media, and they often have little to no guidance as to how to navigate the internet. Spending time on Twitter or Facebook isn't the same as developing the skill of speech. Think about the concept of phone anxiety, where people may be too anxious to make or receive phone calls. It's not all that uncommon for somebody to refuse calling a restaurant to place their pickup order. If there's not a way for them to place their order online, they'll get their food from somewhere else. Now, do you think this kind of person would be at all comfortable with expressing romantic interest face to face? Plus, people's social hangups can go far beyond phone anxiety. Loneliness and mental health problems are on the rise, as is social media addiction. Sites like OF and Fansly use similar psychology as loot crates in video games. The anticipation and mystery before unlocking the content is what draws in customers. This video, The Surprising Psychology of OF Simps, does a great job of explaining this, and I highly recommend it.
The constant feeling that one has on Only is kind of like the one that you might get if your phone buzzed with a text or someone sent you a snap video, but you couldn't open it. There's mystery, you're thinking about it, and that creates anticipation. You can contrast this with X-rated websites where every mystery is immediately revealed.
This kind of marketing will entice a user, but what gets them to stay? The mere exposure effect is a psychological phenomenon by which people tend to develop a preference for things merely because they are familiar with them. This is why you might like a song more the more you listen to it, or why a simp would become particularly attached to a specific content creator. The familiarity is not just with the streamer, but their community as well, often creating a culture of impulsive subservience.
A few defense essentials and some cash to ensure that no amount of financial tampering can hinder your resolution.
Financial tampering? Bro! She owns a gas station and shit, bro! She's like a multi-business empire builder!
It's a bit like an echo chamber, except there's romantic attachment on top of parasocial behavior. These communities are basically socially quarantined collectives for the reclusive, where acceptance can be bought and there's no reason to grow further, just empty subservience. So what separates a streamer who has a simp audience from one who doesn't? My general rule of thumb is, the more you make it about yourself, the worse it gets. Take the streamers Anna Cramling and Amaranth for example. Anna is a professional chess player who's the daughter of 2 grandmasters. Do I think she's attractive? Yes. Would I watch her content if she didn't play chess? No. That's not to say people don't simp for Anna. I'm sure there are people who do, but the intent behind her content is to focus on chess. Amaranth, on the other hand...
Bruh, what? What the fuck?
This brings us to the difference between fame and prestige. Fame is being known on a grand scale.
I know, it was that bad,
Prestige
though.
is widespread respect, usually in a formal and professional light. It's the difference between a well-revered surgeon and Kim Kardashian. I wonder how many people going into the adult entertainment industry take time to recognize the difference between fame and prestige. You can definitely get famous from making adult content. Finding respect beyond the simps who throw money at you may be difficult. Like it or not, the adult entertainment industry is so preposterous that it's begging to be mocked. A lot of people make this a matter of feminism, that women in this industry are being ridiculed simply because they're women. For me, it's a matter of where the money is coming from, oftentimes from isolated social media addicts. Personally, in terms of morality, I would put being an OF model on the same level as being a bookie or a drug dealer. None of these things cultivate prestige.
Also, I'm pretty sure I've seen like stories of like dudes saying how they fucking donated to some of these female streamers, most of what they had, like they were missing mortgage payments and shit like that, and card payments and other shit, just so they could donate to those female streamers. And it's like, bro, what the fuck? Like that's a problem. Like there needs to be rehab for simps. Holy shit. Simp rehab. Simp rehab.
None of this is to say that I'm advocating for the regulation or censorship of adult content. What I do care about is personal responsibility and awareness. This is a Michigan State University article from 2019. Excessive social media use is comparable to drug addiction. Bad decision making is a trait oftentimes associated with drug addicts and pathological gamblers. But what about people who excessively use social media? New research from Michigan State University shows a connection between social media use and impaired risky decision-making, which is commonly deficient in substance addiction. They only had 71 participants, which is low, but it's still interesting research. The participants took a survey that measured their psychological dependence on Facebook, and then were asked to do the Iowa gambling task. The task gives the participant an imaginary amount of money to gamble with. Then they are given 4 different decks of cards to choose from. When you draw a card, you have a chance to gain money or lose money. What the participants aren't told is that there are good decks and bad decks. The good decks have higher reward likelihood, lower penalty costs, but lower reward amounts. The bad decks are the opposite, with lower reward likelihood, higher penalty cost, yet higher reward amounts. Even though the bad decks have higher rewards, the higher penalty cost and lower chances of winning outweigh the gains. Regularly choosing the bad decks is associated with impaired risky decision making. Meshi and his colleagues found that by the end of the gambling task, the worse people performed by choosing from bad decks, the more excessive their social media use. The better they did in the task, the less their social media use. This result is complementary to results with substance addiction. With so many people around the world using social media, it's critical for us to understand its use. I believe social media has tremendous benefits for individuals, but there's also a dark side when people can't pull themselves away. We need to better understand this drive so we can determine if excessive social media use should be considered an addiction. The Iowa gambling task uses the concept of variable reward. Variable rewards are very effective at establishing new behavior, good or bad. Slot machines are probably the most clear-cut example of this concept. Because you're not sure what outcome you're going to get, but there's a chance you could win a lot of money, the mystery and anticipation keeps people pulling the lever. On social media, this would translate to somebody continuously posting to Facebook or Twitter, doing so in hope of getting more likes and attention than usual. This is from the California State University article, The Growing Case for Social Media Addiction. Overuse of social media is much more problematic in children because their developing brain is more malleable. By the time we reach adolescence, our reward system begins to be more activated and develop faster. Not so for our self-control though. This system isn't fully developed until the age of 21. When children are exposed to social media, they can overstimulate their reward center and increase their reward responsiveness. He found that excessive and addictive use was associated with structural changes in the brain. In fact, the brain's reward system was actually smaller. A smaller system can process associations much faster. Society and academia push the use of technology to create efficiency, but at the same time, we need to understand the potential negative effects. To some extent, it's like wine. It's okay to use a little bit, but when it becomes too much, it creates problems. When
you've got to have restraint. You got to be able to You've got to. What was that? What's that saying? I keep trying to use it, but I keep forgetting what it is. Everything in moderation. You know what I'm saying? So when with these whole social media, posting to social media with the hopes of getting more likes and stuff like that, being compared to gambling, it's like gambling with credit, not credit, but like with. I just had the word for. I just said the word earlier. Clout, gambling with clout. You're trying to gain more clout with the little you put in a little bit of clout you have, and you're hoping to get more clout out of it. And you fucking if it's an L take, you lose clout. If it's W take, you get more clout, and that's the payout. And then more follows, more likes, more people watching your for your next post and watching things you say. And I guess it's just being terminally online. Well, that can be turned into an addiction and make you terminally online, and that is a problem. So yeah, I think that is a problem. But and with that also, I can see it being tied into donations and simping. Like you put in some money, you hope you get a good response back from the person who you donated to, and if it's a good response, it triggers that reward section in your brain. You're hoping to do it again and get noticed more and more. And streamers and especially aren't really programmed to give you bad responses, because they too want you to keep donating as well. So they'll give you better responses over and over again. It's just is their current response better than the last response or worse than their last response? And then that might be the L take. If it's worse than the last response, then at that point, it's like, all right, well, let me ease up on donating, right? But then those same people come back because they're simps, right? They come back and they want to be noticed. They want that prospect, that thought of, I've seen videos of where dudes were like, I've given you so much money, I've expected you to, date me already. Type of shit to female streamers. And it's like, god damn, that's an issue.
When we use technology, we need to create boundaries around its use. So, as far as I can tell, the children who are growing up overusing social media are essentially being primed for addictions of all sorts. Social media addiction can have a sort of cyclical nature. The less socially developed you are, the more likely you may be to use social media as a crutch. The more you use social media as a crutch, the less likely you'll be to gain experience with face-to-face communication. This resembles a negative feedback loop. When you throw in perceived romantic connection into the mix, it's a recipe for parasocial disaster. The more traditional adult entertainment industry already had its issues. Adding in variable reward akin to gambling hooks and the ability to essentially buy a perceived relationship will continue to bring social media addiction to new heights. With all that said, it's important to note the dangers don't just lie on the viewer.
And that's exactly what I just said, like the whole parasocial thing. The perceived relationship that you're hoping to attain from donating and shit like that.
Life has honestly been insane for the past year and a half. I was dealing with other issues for a long time, like stalker type things. This happened 2 weeks ago when I was on vacation. I was asleep. It was around 2 a.m. and my mom called me and woke me up.
700 miles.
She was crying, and I knew something really bad had happened. And she said, someone caught your car on fire. I'm so sorry. I have to go. The police are here. The only thing I really could do was go look at the cameras on my phone, and that's what I did. I watched him put a brick on my car, on the hood, and some pot. And he lit something sticking out of it and walked away casually, like he didn't do anything. The next clip after that was the front end of my car engulfed in flames. The firefighters came very quickly, and I'm very thankful for that, because the fire spread to the fence and burnt the side of my house as well, which my mom and animals were inside of. I just never thought that when I started streaming back in 2015 that something like this would ever happen to me.
Stalking
See, and that's what I mean by when by the L take of donating. Like if the streamers are getting their donations, the female streamers are getting their donations. If their last response isn't adequate enough for the person who donated, if it's worse than the response for they got before, then that can trigger things like this. You know what I'm saying? Or it's, the donator can start being like, "Oh, you never cared about me," blah blah blah, or for whatever reason, snap and drive 700 fucking miles to do some shit like that. Or if I guess that might be also why a lot of times female streamers hide their relationships for the most part. Damn, bro.
Statistics aren't all that consistent, but it looks like anywhere from 12 to 30% of women and 4 to 15% of men experience stalking in their lifetime. Given the nature of stalking, those who are more public or famous figures would be disproportionately affected. If your audience consists of people who are socially underdeveloped and prone to addiction, then it's probably even more likely. There are different categories of stalkers, although some of the sites detailing the different categories vary slightly. Generally speaking, the different kinds of stalkers are rejected, resentful, intimacy seekers, incompetent suitors, and predatory. The ones who seem most likely to target a streamer would be resentful stalkers, intimacy seekers, and incompetent suitors. A resentful stalker may have felt slighted or offended by the streamer at some point, viewing themselves as a victim and their actions as justified. Intimacy seekers and incompetent suitors, on the other hand, stalk their victims out of loneliness, desire, and social ineptitude. These traits go hand in hand with social media addiction.
She's offline right now. I gotta find her. I gotta go. I gotta find. There's somebody doxed her, right? Okay, where's she live? Let me drive to over there. Let me see what she's doing when she's offline. She's not streaming right now. What's she doing? That kind of thing. Like, what the fuck, bro?
The example I gave of the Twitch streamer getting her car lit on fire is one of the more extreme examples of a streamer being stalked. That's not to say stalking is uncommon in the streaming sphere. Even Amaranth admits that stalking and creepy fans are just part of the territory for being online. I would say her parasocial marketing and celebrity status put her in a far more unique position than merely being online. But yes, creepy fans and stalkers unfortunately come with that territory. Here's an interesting clip of Amaranth being approached on the street.
How much of my content have you seen?
Not very much. You know, pop in occasionally just to see the meta. Oh my.
What the fuck?
I don't think these guys are stalkers, I think they just ran into Amaranth, but pulling your phone out to film somebody you recognize isn't the classiest move. That's not really what I want to focus on here, though. She asks how much of her content this guy has seen. When he says, not very much, she says, good. There are probably a number of ways to interpret this, but I think these two are the most likely. She either, for the specific instance, feels more comfortable knowing the person who's approaching her isn't a superfan, or she understands in general over-consuming that kind of content isn't healthy. Either way, it's certainly not an endorsement of her product. Amaranth and streamers in general often don't want to have anything to do with their simps other than the transactional interactions online, which makes perfect sense for the sake of privacy. Even though many people market to the simp demographic, no one really preaches the simp lifestyle as a philosophy. If you Google simp advice, all of the results are telling you how to not be a simp, not how to be the best simp possible. Even if you Google how to be a good simp, the first result seems either backhanded towards simps or satirical, the second result is how to acquire simps, and then the rest of the results are, once again, on how to stop being a simp or how to deal with simps. The negative connotation behind the word simp is probably a big factor in these results, but I believe that negative connotation is more than understandable. To be in the position of a simp is to be taken advantage of in a rather pathetic manner. Having wealth is usually seen as a good thing in the dating scene. Throwing money around irresponsibly because it's the only way you can get romantic attention is not seen as attractive. One of the few people to actually advocate for simp behavior is Pokimane.
So I'm gonna be over here.
Of course she does.
Kissing my homies goodnight. And if you're not about it, that's okay. You could be over there alone and mad about people simping or doing whatever. You could pick which side of the battlefield you want to be on.
Here she's going through unban requests, where people who have been banned from her chat try to make a case as to why they should be allowed back in.
I came here to check the Simpson chat. Simp, you're a simp. I was going through a simp hunting phase. It was just a phase. I want you to know that's really weird and low-key. Because why do you even care if someone were hypothetically simping? Huh? You're sad they love someone that ain't you, and that it's
long clip for full context.
Literally, what does that have to do with you? You know, if your
holy shit, she's still going.
Are together, your dad probably simps for your mom.
No, I'm pretty sure he doesn't.
So what? That's a normal part of loving other human beings. Maybe you don't know anything
you don't have to
about that.
To just
In
love
which
someone.
case, sorry. Hope you learn someday. But still, don't ruin it for others.
Bro, she writing the entire paragraph. She writing an essay, runs out of characters.
To paraphrase, because this guy used the word simp like twice, he's a nosy and weird misogynist who's jealous of Pokimane, and his parents may not have ever loved each other. As I've said in another video, Pokimane can get weirdly personal with her remarks. More importantly, she tries to equate simping with love and respect. Her chat even tries to correct her on this, but she's very dismissive.
That's a bad explanation. Why?
She's gonna ban them next.
Feel free to tell me more. Why? Why? Bro, there's a difference between real life relationships and online. What's your point? Your definition of simp is different than mine. Congrats.
Why is my definition wrong? Why is my explanation bad? Please tell me why. What do you mean there's a difference between online relationships and real life relationships? Are you trying to tell me there's a difference between marriage and Twitch chat? Oh, what? Your definition of simp is different than mine and probably far more accurate? Congrats. If she's going to act like she doesn't understand the difference between a parasocial relationship and marriage, then why would she keep asking why in the first place? She willfully misunderstands the word simp because misogyny is a convenient excuse.
I can tell you throughout my entire career as a female streamer, I have sensed on numerous occasions my male counterparts or male friends being afraid to stand up for me because they will be labeled simps. How else can you describe that but some weird internalized misogyny? Like, that's sad.
She has merely sensed on numerous occasions the fear of being labeled as a simp. The first and only reason she comes to as to why people may not stand up for her 100% of the time is misogyny. How else can you describe this assumption as anything other than some weird internalized superiority? Here, the unawareness and hypocrisy reach a peak.
You know, I am so lucky that I've gotten to live more life, and I've gotten to hang out with people who aren't so into this online world.
Pokimane, the people who are so into this online world are your core audience. The people who wind up stalking e-girls don't come from communities like mine. They come from simping communities. Simps aren't made fun of because they respect women. They're made fun of because they largely don't understand how relationships work, which can lead to embarrassing or even tragic moments. With apps trying harder and harder to win your time and attention, it's important that we be mindful of our internet habits. If you feel like you're falling in love with someone you've never met, it's probably time to log off. Alright, that's gonna have to do it for this one. Shout out to the best subscriber squad in all of YouTube. I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Low key though, maybe high key. I remember when I used to sim long ago. You know what I'm saying? When I was unknowing of the world, you feel me? But I'm so glad those days are behind me because it seems like it's everything's gotten worse. If you are like, for those people who are one, things are worse for them now than it was back when I used to do it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm grateful. I've grown from that shit, and it's for me it's sad to see other people doing it. So, you know what I'm saying? Maybe one day when I'm a millionaire, maybe I will try to make an actual rehab for simps. You know what I'm saying? A physical building in different locations that they can go to and you know what I'm saying, get that rehab on. You know what I'm saying? Learn the error and the ways of simping. You feel me? But that, you know, that was interesting. I learned a few things I didn't know before. But as always, the link to the channel and the link to the video will be in the description below, so be sure to check them out. And while you're there, not that, excuse me. While you're there, don't forget to do those 3 things I like to ask you to do: like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell for more videos. Yeah. And you know what it is after that, in case I don't see you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Peace and much love to you.